Hello, welcome to Global Eye. I'm Parikshit Luthra, and today we turn our attention to one of the White House most recent guests, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. US President Donald Trump not only welcomed Sharif at the executive mansion, but also praised him just ahead of the meeting. The US leader had kind words for the country's army chief, General Asim Munir, who accompanied the Pakistani Prime Minister. However, President Trump didn't refer to either man by name. He said, and I quote, "We have a great leader coming, the Prime Minister of Pakistan and the Field Marshal. The Field Marshal is a very great guy, and so is the Prime Minister." The talks, which were attended by Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, lasted for 90 minutes. No further details of the meeting were released by the White House, and no press conference was held, unlike after President Trump's meeting with other world leaders. However, the Pakistani government did release photos and videos of Trump seated with Sharif and Munir in the Oval Office. Furthermore, the Pakistani Prime Minister's office released a statement which said that Sharif praised Trump for helping to facilitate a ceasefire with India, a claim that the Indian government has rejected. Pakistan's statement said that both leaders also discussed counter-terrorism cooperation and the possibility of new US investments in Pakistan. So is this meeting just optics, or is it a strategic pivot? And what does this mean for India? Joining me right now is Sharat Sabharwal, former Indian ambassador to Pakistan, somebody who has tremendous amount of experience when it comes to India-Pakistan affairs. Ambassador Sabharwal, thank you very much for joining us. What's your reading of this meeting? Do you think it's also unprecedented that the Pakistani army chief was present with the Pakistani Prime Minister during the meeting, and Donald Trump called him a great guy? Asim Munir has already visited the White House twice in the last few months.
Yeah, I think the fact that Prime Minister was accompanied by his army chief is not unprecedented. This has happened in the past. What was unprecedented was Trump's, I think it was a luncheon for Asim Munir some 1 or 2 months ago. This meeting, it seems to me, is part of the new transactional relationship developing between the two countries. It started, as you know, with the business interest of Trump family in crypto business in Pakistan. It then went on to rare earths. Earlier this month, an agreement was signed in Islamabad where an American company agreed to invest $500 million in the mining sector in Pakistan. But the manner in which Asim Munir has been feted in the White House suggests that there is a security component to this new transactional relationship which is developing. Now, what is the exact nature of this?
Ambassador Sabharwal, you said that there is a transactional relationship developing between Pakistan and the US. But is this a strategic pivot, a tilt towards Pakistan?
No, it's a shift in the US stance towards Pakistan. Let me say this, why do I call it a transactional relationship? The two countries never had strategic congruence. They entered into various transactional relationships during the Cold War, thereafter during the Afghan Jihad, the US war against terror, and in each case the two were working together but at cross purposes. Pakistan's aims were different from the aims of the United States. It seems to me that they are entering into a relationship of that kind, but you're right, absolutely, that it is a shift from the posture of the United States towards Pakistan, let's say, for the last decade or so. But if you wish, we can talk of the security component that I believe could be part of this new transactional relationship.
What do you think is Pakistan offering to the United States, and what is making Pakistan's offer so compelling to Donald Trump, according to you, Ambassador Sabharwal?
Well, I mentioned some of those factors earlier, and I was coming to the security component. It's difficult to say the exact nature of the security component that may be involved in this new transactional relationship. But it could be in the context of Iran. It could be in the context of counter-terrorism in Afghanistan, where, as you know, the Taliban are resisting Trump's recent attempts to take back the Bagram air base. The Pakistanis are reaching a breaking point with the Taliban because they believe that they are fanning terrorism within Pakistan. So could the two sides come together to pressurize the Taliban? or could it be in the context of the security architecture in the West Asian region? You would recall that very recently a defense agreement was signed between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Now, you might have seen that there has been no reaction. I haven't come across any official reaction from the United States to that agreement. Is it possible that they gave a nod to the signing of this agreement as an attempt to subcontract a part of the responsibility for security in the West Asian region to Pakistan? Now, that would be a strange choice of a partner, but the Americans have made these kind of choices in the past also. So these are the possibilities. Now, things should become clearer in the coming weeks or months. But as you rightly said, the kind of importance that is being given to this relationship now, it couldn't be purely because of cryptocurrency or some possibility of rare earths emerging later on. It may have something to do with some security component.
Right. That's an important point, sir. Whether the Saudi-Pakistan Defense Pact had the blessing of United States or not. But let me also ask you, the Pakistani statement after the meeting said that there were discussions held and Prime Minister Sharif sought US investments in Pakistan's agriculture sector, technology sector, mines, energy. Do you think the conversation was just about this, or was there some sort of larger reason, larger economic reason also why the two leaders met? Was there some offer of supplying critical minerals and giving access to US companies to Pakistan's critical mineral resources?
Yes, these investment in agriculture and education and so on and so forth, these are frills. This is going on for a long time. Some investments come, but not much investment has come in. I think if you talk purely of the economic sphere, Trump has spoken of two things. One is, of course, rare earths. I told you an agreement was signed earlier this month for investment by an American company in rare earths prospection and exploitation later on in Balochistan, possibly in the so-called Gilgit-Baltistan. So that's one. The other, Trump has spoken of oil prospection. Now, there are some reports of offshore oil in Pakistan's economic zone. There has also been talk of shale gas and oil deposits in Pakistan, but there is no well-defined estimate of what they are. So it will need prospection, it will need then exploitation, which is extremely difficult in Pakistan's security environment today. But these are the possibilities that are being talked of on the economic front.
Right. I would also like to ask you, there is no statement from the US side on the meeting as to what transpired, what were the takeaways. The Pakistani side has put out a statement, of course, but why do we know so little about this meeting?
If they made a statement, the United States made a statement, they would have also spoken of those frills that the Pakistanis have spoken of. Trump brought about peace in this region. There'll be investment in education, agriculture, and so on. If, as it seems, they have discussed some other significant things, notably those related to the security field, then they won't put it out in a public statement. And that may be the reason I think the Americans, they haven't released any statement so far. They may do so in the coming day or two, but we haven't seen any statement by them. And these statements coming from the Pakistani sides are also sketchy and, very formal.
That's an important point. Let's see how this relationship develops in the months to come. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sabharwal, for joining us for that very important conversation. It's a meeting that the Ministry of External Affairs has also said that they are watching closely. We're taking a short break, but coming up on the other side, President Trump announces a 100% tariff on patented and branded drugs not manufactured in the US. A special discussion with Jayant Dasgupta, former ambassador at the World Trade Organization, when we return. Welcome back. You were watching Global Eye. US President Donald Trump has fired a fresh salvo on Big Pharma. The US government has imposed 100% tariffs on branded or patented drug imports. This will come into effect from the 1st of October. However, the government has clarified that these tariffs won't hurt a company unless they build a manufacturing factory in the US. The Indian generics industry is unscathed by this order, but select players like Sun Pharma and Wockhardt who sell branded drugs in the US will not be affected. It was not just Big Pharma. A slew of items were targeted by President Trump with additional tariffs. Imported kitchen cabinets and bathroom vanities now face a 50% tariff. Upholstered furniture will face a 30% tariff. Heavy trucks face a 25% tariff. This will take effect from the 1st of October as well. President Trump defended the decision, claiming unfair outside competition. The Trump administration is also planning to reduce the reliance on semiconductors made abroad. According to the Wall Street Journal, the White House is considering a plan to mandate a 1:1 ratio of domestically manufactured imported semiconductors. What this means is a company will be allowed to export semiconductors only if it supplies the same number of chips to the US companies. Any company failing to meet this ratio will face tariffs. To take this now forward, we're now joined by Jayant Dasgupta, former Indian ambassador to the World Trade Organization. Mr. Dasgupta, thank you very much for joining us. First of all, how do you see the trade negotiations that have taken place in the US? The Commerce Minister held extensive discussions with the USTR. The talks have been moving along positively. The Commerce Minister met various stakeholders, including investors, to discuss the India story. But it seems that we are still some distance away from a trade deal. What do you think could be some of the sticking points at this juncture?
The most important sticking point will be, of course, the rollback of the tariffs. The first tranche of that will be the 25%, which was the secondary tariff imposed from the 27th of August. And some kind of a reduction, substantial reduction in the first tranche imposed on the 7th of August of 25%. What we are hoping it will come down to at least 15%. So this is something which, without which I don't think there would be an agreement. And the second, also very important point is that we will continue to buy Russian oil. And now it appears that we are also quite, we have progressed quite a bit in joint production of the Russian Su-57 fighter jets. So defense production wise, co-production and purchase of Russian military hardware, I think that is something which we will not be able to compromise on. And President Trump's administration will have to accept that. And the third point, of course, goes without saying on that dairy and agricultural exports, which have been a sticking point.
Okay, I would also like to ask you about 100% tariffs on pharma products that have been imposed by Donald Trump. And this is on any branded or patented pharma products, unless the company is building a manufacturing plant in the US. Ambassador Dasgupta, the pharma industry in India is saying the tariff impact will be limited. But if you were asked to quantify it, how would you do so?
If you look at India's exports to the US, I think this year, of course, we have exceeded $10 billion. There has been a 20% increase. But last year, it was $8.73 billion. A vast majority of the products which we export are generic drugs or using active pharmaceutical ingredients. We have formulations which we export, which are also, not generic, but formulations. So these will not fall within the purview of the 100% tariffs. And for the time being, and I emphasize this point, I think the Indian industry is not going to get affected very much. There are a few contract manufacturers in India which do manufacturing of patent-protected drugs from, let's say, US companies or other companies worldwide. Their exports may get affected because unless the principal has a manufacturing facility in the US or is setting up something in the near future, they will get affected. So I think you mentioned Wockhardt and some other company which makes branded drugs, they could get affected potentially, but the overall hit would be very, very nominal.
Donald Trump has also imposed 50% tariffs on all kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, 30% tariffs on upholstered furniture. Does that have an impact on Indian industry?
I don't really think that will affect us very much, but because we are not very large manufacturers of upholstered furniture, for instance. Of course, the upholstery fabric, we do export quite a bit of that. So manufacturers in the US who import upholstery fabric from India and then fit it into furniture, which they may have sourced from China or some other country, that might get affected. But I think with this 50% tariffs, the upholstery fabrics also exports is going to get affected in any case. So that is one thing. The other point is very heavy trucks, which are also going to attract about 25% tariffs. That I don't think were actually exporting much by way of very heavy trucks, which President Trump has in mind. And the other point I wanted to mention in this context is that he is again invoking or going to invoke the national security exception for the very heavy trucks, because he's saying, he's mentioned it, I think, in his tweet also, that it is about national security interest. Something to that effect.
All right. My final questions to you now, sir. What do you think happens between India and the United States now? What will it take to finally have a trade deal between the two nations?
I think we have, our minister has already made it public that we are going to buy much more US oil and gas. All other products which could help in rebalancing the so-called goods trade deficit which President Trump is focused on. But having said that, I think the sticking points which I have already mentioned, if there isn't considerable satisfaction on, or almost total satisfaction on those points, I don't think we will be able to have a trade deal by November.
Right. And finally, if both Prime Minister Modi and President Trump end up meeting on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit, do you think that could lead to some positive outcome on a trade deal, or at least an understanding on setting aside 25% tariff, that additional tariff?
I think from what I can gauge, Prime Minister Modi would not be very forthcoming in having a meeting with President Trump without a very fixed kind of an agenda on which most of the agreement has already been arrived at. Because I don't think in any government functionary, minister at that, and the Prime Minister, of course, will get into a meeting with President Trump without having already decided the fine print of the agreement. So, unless we have an agreement between the two ministers, Minister Goyal and the minister from their side, two ministers from their side, by November, I don't think a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump will yield anything by way of a breakthrough.
All right. Ambassador Dasgupta, thank you very much for joining us on the program. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.